You can find out more information on the web page of PowerUs or International Associations of Schools of Social Work. I am one of the coordinators of PowerUs, and the speaker today, Ole Petter, whom I will introduce a little bit more thorough in a little while, was together with me one of the initiator of the network PowerUs. So first, before I introduce Ole Petter to you today, we will have a little greeting from the president, Anna Maria Campanini, the president of International Associations of Schools of Social Work. And I will also say that technical support today is Jenny Joy, who is working from India, Delhi, and who will now be sharing this little film that Anna Maria has prepared for us, who can't be here today. Let's hope we can all.
Webinar series organized in partnership between International Association of Schools of Social Work and PowerUs. As you know, the International Association of Schools of Social Work is the global association of institutions of social work education, supporting social work education and social work educators in the world. PowerUs is an international network of social work teachers, researchers, and representatives from different service user organizations, supporting the empowerment of marginalized and discriminated groups in society. We have signed a letter of understanding to organize common activities like this webinar series because we share common values and are united in the belief that social work education and social care service provision need to be protected and further developed. In our global standard for social work education and training, approved in 2020 by IEA and IF, there is one specific paragraph, number 3, under the chapter of people, in which is declared that with regards to service user involvement, schools must incorporate the rights, views, and interests of service users and broad communities served in this operation, including curriculum development, implementation, and delivery. But also develop a proactive strategy towards facilitating service user involvement in all aspects of design, planning, and delivery of study programs, and ensure reasonable adjustments are made in order to support the involvement of service users. These are mandatory, and also there is one aspirational suggestion, that is to create opportunities for the personal and professional development of service users involved in the study program. As International Association of Schools of Social Work, we recognize the benefits of service users' involvement in the training of social work students, and for this reason we want to develop a strong partnership with PowerUs. Although service user involvement in social work education has been recognized as an important standard in our global document, there are still many countries where the inclusion of users of social services is considered as a taboo issue or simply has been ignored. Our commitment is on different levels, as for example, co-organize learning opportunities that would emphasize the importance of service user involvement in social work education, like the webinar series that we are starting today. Promote service user inclusion in program curriculum development in the IEA member schools, and also support the inclusion of service user and expert by experience in the education and training of social work students. We are also committed to develop specific guidelines of good practice in service user involvement in global social work education, to be forwarded to IEA schools members that would be encouraged to adopt them. I really hope that many colleagues, students, and service users will attend this initiative, both live or in streaming. We will publish the link in both of our websites. I would like to thank the colleagues of PowerUs for their very active engagement in preparing this initiative, and I am sure that it will be of great interest for many people around the world and would help to share and develop best practices in this field. Thank you so much for participating.
We give a warm thank you to Anna Maria and to Jenny and other colleagues from IASSW for giving us this opportunity. And next in this program, I'm going to introduce the first speaker, which is Ole Petter Askheim, whom I've had the joy to work with for many years now, more than a decade, on the overall topic for this series. The overall topic is critical perspectives on service user participation and experiential knowledge. And Ole Petter is a professor at the Faculty of Education and Social Work of Inland University of Applied Sciences. I know the name in Scandinavian, but I looked it up. Ole Petter, you must correct me if I'm wrong. And Ole Petter's main research interests are user involvement, empowerment, co-production, and disability studies. So Ole Petter has a rich experience in inclusion, both in research and education. So what we will do now is let Ole Petter do his presentation. And please prepare questions and get ready to discuss what Ole Petter has talked about. We will spend some time after his presentation to have questions. And it's very much okay to write your questions in the chat. So Ole Petter, welcome, and please share your screen for presentation, or if you want to introduce yourself first.
Thank you, Cecilia. You can hear me, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, and thank you for the invitation. Of course, I'm honored to be the first speaker on this this webinar. So that was really honoring for me, I think. As you say, Cecilia, I work at what is called the Inland Norway University of Applied Sciences. Have been working there for more than a generation, I think, and officially I'm a professor emeritus from last summer, but still working. What I can try to share the screen. So you can see my presentation now. Yep, that's good. So what I'm going to talking about is, as you see, about service user involvement or co-production in research, and the title is Service Users and Academics, Collaborators, not competitors in welfare research. And the background for this title is that in many ways I think there are two features we can see now, two simultaneous features, but also conflicting features. And the first is that, as you all know, I think there is an increasing emphasis on the importance of user involvement in research. We can see it both in literature, we can see it in public documents, we can see it if we want to apply for finances to research projects, for instance, to here in Europe to the European Union, or for instance here in Norway there are some programs we must justify if user involvement is not considered. So the rule is that it should be considered when we apply for research projects. Of course, I suppose many of you are familiar with these arguments, but we can say that there are perhaps two main arguments for involving service users in the research. Of course, we have this democratic, ethical arguments that people should have a right to have a say in research that has importance for them. But on the other hand, there are also what you can call qualitative arguments that the quality of research will be better when persons with user experiences participates in the research project. We can talk about that they perhaps raise other questions, perhaps interpret data in other ways, and also perhaps it is easier to recruit informants if people with a service user background take active part in a research project. And I think this is not least important when we talk about important groups in the welfare research. And I think behind this there is also a kind of what this book from Novity and his colleagues call a change from what they call a mode 1 to a mode 2 in research. And where the mode 1 is what you recognize as a more traditional way of looking at research, where knowledge is produced in an academic sphere, separated from the external society. And there is a shift from this mode to a mode where science and society are intertwined, and that the knowledge production doesn't occur in a vacuum, but it is dependent on the context where it is produced. And a consequence of this is also, of course, that knowledge production is not separated from societal interests and values. So in many ways, there is behind this a kind of epistemological shift. And there is a Swedish researcher called Hallberg. I'm not sure what his first name is, but he says that a consequence of this and the consequence of the mode 2 approach is that also scientific controversies will increase. I think that we can see this criticism and resistance now coming from at least part of the academic society, and there are different arguments. I think these are probably the most important, and of course this criticism is especially coming when the people with a service user background are actively engaged in this project as some kind of co-researcher role. And the arguments are firstly that they don't have the necessary skills, they don't have the necessary qualifications for research. Research is a very complex activity, and this is underestimated is one of the arguments. Another one is that there are partisan representatives, they are represented subjectivity, and in that way threatening the objectivity of the research. The consequence of this is that user involvement are creating research of low quality. I have some examples of these. The first here is from an article in the Scandinavian Journal of Public Health, and it is from two Norwegian researchers, and they say that much of the research where service users are involved as co-researchers, it is of low quality, it has normative, and they say that normative arguments valuing cooperation will prevail at the expense of advanced knowledge production. The second is also from a Norwegian researcher. She was head of the Department of Health Promotion and Development at the University in Bergen, and she is perhaps even stricter than Malterud and Elvebakken, when it says that the participation of users as co-researchers is degrading the researchers' competence and lacking respect for what creates quality in research. And she says we must not be so afraid of kicking downwards that we do not dare to speak up and say that in fact we are those who know this best. And I have a third one, which I think is a little curious. It is a lady called Catherine Oliver, and she has written an article in a journal called Health Research Policy and Systems. And her argument is, or her reflection is, that there is a gendered aspect in this research. She writes that a gendered aspect may feature in co-production work. Our own experiences suggest that co-production conferences are attended by women and co-produced projects are often led by women, while senior men may be keener to manage co-production work with senior managers, clinicians, and policy advisors than with lay people, patients, carers, etc. How, why, and the consequences of those possible imbalance require further thoughts. So in many ways, I think this must be interpreted as that research led by women is not so serious and is of lower quality than research led by men. If we go a little further into this mode 2, I think we can also there see that there are at least two different theoretical traditions. We can talk about on the one hand what is called a pragmatic consensus-oriented tradition, and where the thing is that theory and knowledge will occur in cyclic processes. It will be created through dialogue between different actors, and where the experiences that will sort of contribute to the creation of practical solution to complex problems. So it has a very kind of practical, pragmatic background. On the other hand, there is a tradition which is called standpoint epistemology, and where it is a more explicit power perspective, and says that societal power relations will also play out epistemologically, and it says that including the voice and the standpoints of silent and oppressed groups in research will imply a widening of the knowledge base, and that the research in this way will be more democratic. This is a tradition partly developed by feminist researchers, and another background is Latin American thinkers like Freire, Paulo Freire, Falsboda, and also we have this tradition strongly represented in disability research and research in mental health, and many of you are familiar with the Routledge Handbook of Service User Involvement, which came last year, and where Peter Beresford and his colleague Duffer, they speak of service user standpoint theory, and where the point is that their experiences as being service users that their experiences being service users, and that will facilitate insights, perspectives, and understandings based on their lived experience. So of course this tradition will also have a consequence that the standpoint will be more explicitly political. But Sandra Harding, which is one of the well-known feminist researchers behind this tradition, she argues that knowledge that is both self-reflectively partial, but also aware that it is grounded socially. She says that this will be more transparent and more objective than mainstream research, because mainstream research will hide its values and epistemological basis to naturalize and normalize the position of a marginalized group, and there, in this way, make their status in a way unquestionable. If we go a little further to the quality argument that co-produced research makes better quality in research. What is quality? What is research quality within such a paradigm of research? And I've here based my presentation on an article of Belcher and his colleagues from 2016, and they have they refer to four main principles of what creates quality, research quality, within co-production paradigm. The first one is relevance, and relevance, it refers to the importance, the impact research has for the actual issue under investigation, but also for the greater society. And I think some sub arguments under that is that in this co-producing research, there are also different strategies, and they differ between what they call consultative and integrative strategies. And where consultative strategies is and perhaps what is the most common, I think, and that is where users are asked to come with their views to influence decisions, for instance, as member of a user panel, reference group, and things like that, or to come with input in different phases of the research project. But while on the other hand, what is called integrative strategies is more research, where the research is initiated by and also developed in cooperation between the researchers and other actors, which of course is a more fundamental way of cooperating with the research projects. And one very important thing with that, I think, is that an integrative strategy will also emphasize the importance of having cooperating approach from the early phase of the projects, which is very important because, of course, in this phase, the research questions, the issues of investigations, it is there, they are elaborated. So when users come in at later stages, in many ways, the fundamental premises of the research is decided. Okay, to go further, Belcher and his colleagues also talk about credibility, and which refers to the degree to which the research results are robust scientifically, are credible according to established scientific criteria. So that's more quality, which is also referring to more traditional research. The next point is legitimacy, which refers to whether the research process is seen as impartial, ethically proper by the recipients and the users of knowledge. And the last point, efficiency, refers to how the goals for collaboration is achieved, and in co-produced research, point is that traditional goals as publications, scientific articles, that will not be enough, not sufficient to evaluate the efficiency of research that aims to contribute to changes, understandings, and practices of importance for the participants. But I think the main point here is that if we look at these four principles that Belcher here introduces, we can see that it is both established criteria in the academia as it is today, and in more established and traditional research, and it also are principles that is more explicit to what experiential knowledge adds to the research. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so that both the quality that users bring in with their direct experiences and the established academic quality criteria, both are important and necessary in this co-productive research. Both are different and necessary, but they cover different principles in a way. So my conclusion so far is that this criticism, from what we can see from at least some parts of the academic society, I think it is not so relevant, and I think they are in a way the arguments are not very good, I think, because I think that because these competences are not the same, it's alternative competences. They do not compete, but they complement each other. So the service users bring in and seek alternative perspectives on reality and different understandings of problems and solutions, even if they do that, it is still that the competences that academic researchers bring in with their training, qualifications, and experiences, of course, they are also still fundamental to the quality of research. So when, for instance, in this article by Elvbakken, I think that when they say that it is problematic to participate on equal footing, I am not sure what do they mean by that. What does it mean to participate on equal footing? And as I see it, to participate on equal footing does not necessarily mean that you're doing the same things or that you contribute to the same extent in the same way in this co-production research project. So the main point is that they have alternative competences. The main point further is that they have this kind of research has also a distinct expressed value base, and I think when we talk about the value base, I think that again emphasizes the importance of strengthening the integrative strategies that I was talking about, so that people with service user background can be able to come into the project at an early stage and to be a part of the development of the projects early, because it's, as I said, many of the principles, the fundamental principles are made in the early phase of the projects. But the main thing here is that together, I think these different competences will create a broader and more solid basis for knowledge development. So just before I end, some, I think, important reminders of this. I think that if we agree of what I have been talking about, I think that we should also say that research that involve users as co-researchers, it should still be paid the same respect as other research. It should be paid the same respect regarding methods, and claims should be examined as other research. Because if we do not do that, I think we in a way we shoot ourselves in our foot, and that co-research will be given a kind of soft touch, which we don't also are critical to the co-research project. And Hugh McLaughlin, he said some years ago that to merely argue that the involvement of service user co-research will naturally improve a research project is as misguiding as believing only academic researchers can undertake real research. So I think that is also an important reminder for us. But at the same time, I think it is also important to remember and be aware of that in order to take user involvement in research seriously, it is important to remind us that this will also we will also need resources to do it in a proper way, resources with both the time, economy, and things like that. Of course, that is also an important reminder to those who finance research, so that if they stress the goals of user involvement in research, it is important that it is followed up by research resources to make it possible. So that was I think I stopped there. I just have a final PowerPoint. I have an article. If some of you are interested in looking a little further at this is an article which was published in the Nordic Social Work Research. It came online in 2020, but it is also now in the paper version in 2022. Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ole Petter, for a very interesting introduction. And I know that you have a lot of experience behind these wise conclusions that you have shared with us. And now I hope that we can get some discussion going. And for those of you that have participated, we welcome you to either raise your voice by raising your hand first, or writing questions in the chat. So Mette, was that a hand? No, okay. So while you think about questions to ask Ole Petter, I can begin. You know, your title, Ole Petter, was Collaborators, not Competitors, in social work research. And then you talk about service user participation and researchers, academic researchers. Thinking about that, the academy can be quite competitive in itself. You know, people are quite protective of their domains, so to speak, and including service users means giving space and also maybe questioning the way that research has been done before. So people might be quite protective, and some of the criticism you have argued for could, of course, be just because it's different. You say that equal status, or that people don't have to do the same thing. in the collaboration, but we can have different roles. And still, it's important because power issues are relevant. You mentioned to that sometimes the people that should be involved as service users, or whatever we want to call them, might be involved very late, and it could be maybe more tokenistic than like thought through. Could you give some example of how we can communicate respect and equal status if we're doing different things? And I know you have some experience in this field.
Yeah. Yeah. For instance, let me start with to say that I don't think it is. We can't expect, and I don't think the service users would want it, that they should have the same competence, for instance, in complicated statistical programs and things like that. You could not expect it, and it would simply not be right. So that and in that way, I find it a little strange that academic researchers find this so threatening. I think that apart from what I have been said, I think, or I can say it once more, it is you have to be willing to use some time to know each other, to get respect for each other. That is also an important part of this, besides of money and resources and things like that. And a final thing I can mention is which we had been doing in my university last year, is that I think in very much of the literature about youth participation in research, it is stressed that if it should be successful, it is also important to have or to give the user representatives training. They should be trained, in what is research, in research ethics and things like that. Perhaps trained in doing interviews. And of course that is an important part of it. What is not said so much in literature, and which I think is also very important, is that perhaps also we who are academic researchers need some training, because we are not trained to work together with persons with a service user background. So I think that we should not forget that even if it is very important that the users get training and that we use time to get known to each other, be safe and things like that, it is also perhaps even so important that that we get training. And what we did in our university last year, and I think was very interesting, and we hope to do it again, was to have a common training course for academic researchers and persons with a service user background. So we had a common program, and I think in many ways that is something that probably should be done more, because then we have also a common background. We follow a common training program, and as a part of this we will also be know each other in a better way. We will be safer to each other and things like that. So that is one thing I think is important. And let me say just one last thing before you go on. But I've been thinking about this when we have programs at the university, in, for instance, in science and in science methodology. I think what is a problem we should discuss very seriously is that, as far as I know, there is very little space for user involvement in research, in the training programs for instance, PhD students and also for master students. And for me, that is really an important thing, because I think that if this should sort of spread to broader groups and to researchers who are not today so very aware of the possibilities, or are so aware of the possibilities this might imply for research, I think we should also be very eager to get this into the more formal methodological courses at the universities. I think that is an important way to get more research with representation from service users.
Okay, so thank you, Ole Petter. I see we have one commentary here in the chat box. Beth Archer-Kuhn says, very true, Ole Petter, for the Canadian context. Beth, do you want to give some response to Ole Petter's presentation? You're very welcome if you unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. I don't really want to comment a lot on it, except to say that that we were involved in some group study programs a number of years ago over in the UK. And that's where I first was introduced to this idea of service user involvement. We are not using the same type of pedagogy here in the Canadian context. I can certainly see how valuable it is. You know, we met with a number of the people that you were citing in your presentation. So Joe Duffy, Hugh McLaughlin, Gavin Davidson, Peter Beresford did a presentation for us as well. So all of that really valuable information and good learning for us. So I was just agreeing with your comments that you were making.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have some, we have had some collaboration with the Canadian researchers who have had joint programs for service user students and social work students, which you can read about on the webpage of Power Us. We have some Canadian associations there. But thank you for your input. So Ole Petter, let me see, there is one more question here in the chat. Okay, yeah, we'll have to refer. We have a question from Ali Veerman here. What did the academics learn from the service users and vice versa in the joint program? Ali, do you want to speak up? Is that a question to Ole Petter about this research course? We can't hear you. I think your microphone is off.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. I'm very interested in the joint learning group. I did something in a group, learning group in experiential knowledge on addiction, where researchers and clients were together got a training to be an experiential expert. And I was wondering what in this joint group, what did the academics learn from the service users and vice versa? And is there maybe another language necessary or another kind of expression of knowledge necessary to meet each other?
Can you repeat the last part of the question, please?
Yes. Maybe there's another kind of language necessary to unlock the experiential knowledge of the service users.
Okay.
It's a complex question.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let me first say that in this course we had, we had, I think it was seven projects who took part in that course, and most of them were from the area of addiction, mental health. So in many ways, I think it is what is groups who were similar to what you are doing in your research. And I said, what should I say? I think that to say it simple, I think what this is about is to when you come together, when you discuss together, when you have lunch breaks together, I think that the limits between the academic researchers and people with user backgrounds, they are sort of smoldering up in a way. I think they are. I think it is. I think that is really an important part of it, that we are not so very different, but of course, what is the main thing is that the people with the background, they bring in their experiences, they bring in their competence in this project, and that is knowledge we as academic researchers, we don't have it in the same way, for instance, when we are making interviews, when we are interviewing, I think I had this is I can also there refer from another project we had, which was a research project we had together with another Norwegian university, and where people with user experiences took part, and for instance, they took part in focus groups interviews together with one of the researchers at the university, which I think was very interesting and very positive, because they raised other questions. Perhaps they raised them in another way. They used another language. They had more detailed knowledge about the people who were interviewed. So in a way, I think we made a good team when we did this. So, and I think that in many ways is the good thing here, that we can, if this works well, we can make a good team instead of looking at each others as competitors. And in this way, I find it very strange in a way that academic researchers should see this as threatening, because I find it very difficult to understand why they see this as degrading for the academics, honestly. I don't know if that was an answer to your question.
It is partly an answer to my question. Thank you very much. I don't see the two groups, if you can speak of two groups, because academic researchers can also have experiential knowledge.
Yeah, that's right.
But I don't see it as competitive. But I found out that some of the experiences of service users are difficult to express. And so I'm working a lot with arts-based research methods to use another kind of expression to unlock some kind of experiential knowledge. So I found out that academic researchers are not used to this, and they think it's even more subjective to use this kind of expression, and more the experiential, existential aspects of experiences are difficult to transfer, to make clear. And some arts-based methods, I found out, can help the communication about these parts, these elements of existential aspects of experiences.
Yeah. Just a short comment to that. I think, if I understand you right, I think I quite agree to that, and I think that raises an interesting issue. I think that perhaps it is also, at least when we talk about some service user groups, to expand our methodological toolbox in a way as academic researchers, and that brings me back to, I think, for us who are academic researchers, I think really this is a very important discussion we should bring into the methodological courses we have at the university, so that it will be a more natural part of that, and not just for some researcher with special interests.
Mm-hmm.
Just adding to that, because we have had some projects in Norway now, where both my university has taken part and other university, and they have been working together with people with intellectual disabilities, and not least there, of course, what you are talking about, to expand the toolbox with different methodological tools will be very important, I think. But I think the research done here has been very, very interesting and very, very important, I think, and that they have been very clever at using methodological tools that are also possible for people with intellectual disabilities to use and take part in.
I want to thank you all for a really good discussion. And Ole Petter, you have started this series and given us a lot to think about. I'm thinking about that you mentioned this book by Novotny, Gibbons and Scott that is 20 years old, but actually some of those ideas were built on ideas developed in the 70s. You mentioned the feminist movement and the disability rights movements and Paulo Freire's work, among others, in South America. So I think one thing I'm thinking about after this session is what you have told us about, that partnerships take time. It's not a quick fix, and it's also a matter of how to use the knowledge. How useful is the knowledge for people on different levels in society? So I think it's been very inspirational and a good start of this series. And thank you for all of you who have participated, also with questions and discussion points. And next time we have this webinar will be in 2 weeks, on the 25th of February. I will give a presentation together with my colleague Tabitha Wright-Nielsen, and we will be talking about gap mending courses and service user participation within the education at Lund University. So we hope that many of you can join us then. We have a comment here from Ali Wehrman. Thank you, Ole Petter, and I think we can all join in to that comment. And thank you all for participating today. See you soon. And you can find more information on IASSW's homepage and Facebook page, and also on the Power Us web page and Facebook page. Thank you all for participating. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.